Welcome to the Rich Report, a podcast with news and information on the world of big data. Today, my guest is from Versium. We have Matty. Chris, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, Chris, I'm not really familiar with Versium, so I thought what we do is kind of go through your slide deck, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end. That sound good?
That sounds great. So if we're kicking off on the slide deck here, I assume you have us on slide number 2, which is just sort of a verbal description of Versium. And what Versium is doing, we've assembled a significant volume of what we call LifeData. And LifeData is data attributes that are generated as a consumer, or even for that matter, a small business, goes through the daily life and engages in the real world. And so these are elements, demographic, social graphic, psychographic details that can be very powerful. And while an enterprise, such as, say, a mobile carrier, knows what type of devices you have, how many minutes you use, how many customer service calls you have, and various other data elements that are related to the interaction between the business and the enterprise, they don't necessarily know who is the person in the real world, i.e., what kind of car does the person drive? Do they have kids? Do they rent versus own? Do they subscribe to Golf magazine? Are they socially active? How many connections or friends do they have? Do they tweet a lot? Are they a frequent liker? Are people responding to those tweets and likes? And all of these are data elements that are generated in the real world, which are very powerful in predicting behavior. Obviously, a person who drives a sports car is considerably different than someone who drives a hybrid. A person with children is a lot different than a person without kids, i.e., potentially a person, one might say, with kids are more patient. And so these data elements can be very powerful into marketing, advertisements, or purchasing activity, or possibly will a person pay their bills on time, and very powerful in terms of determining how a person will act. To give you a sense of scale, we have 100 billion attributes in our data warehouse. And again, these are all demographic, social graphic, psychographic details. And further on the topic of scale, we have 3.2 billion emails that we use to match these life data attributes, whether it's matching disparate sets of data in our own data store, i.e. from disparate sources that we aggregate, or from this data we source ourselves. It's very powerful in making sure that you can assign these attributes to the right individual. Obviously, a John Smith is much harder to match and identify and verify that you're dealing with this particular John Smith than maybe a unique name. And so we've built some very powerful matching technology that allows us to associate these different disparate sets of data to the consumer, or even for that matter, small business, with different attributes for a small business. Those 3.2 billion emails are also used to match this data to the enterprise's data. Further from in addition to our volume of data, we have some very interesting patented pending technology that allows us to validate and build a profile about a consumer around an email in terms of what other actions and activities online. This is a visual picture of what we're doing. And I should say there's two aspects to the business. We've assembled this massive volume of data for two reasons. One is we have a data services platform that allows us to provide access to these life data attributes to businesses that want to integrate data intelligence into their applications. Potentially, it's a CRM solution that wants to make the CRM service and capabilities more data intelligent. Perhaps it's a research application like a people finding service that wants to include social related data within that application. Or maybe it's a marketing and email application that looks to bring in these data elements to make the value inherent within their applications greater from the standpoint of data-driven applications. So we'll license this data to third-party applications to make them more data-rich, more data intelligence. And we do that either through a direct API or, in some cases, a batch upload. And as you can see in the middle portion of this particular slide, some of the magic that we bring to the equation is really in the arena of cleaning up all these different life data attributes that you see on the left, indexing them together, combining them, and ultimately being able to match them together as well as to the third-party application folks indexing to the application on the right side there. If we flip down now to the next slide, slide 8, a little bit on the data that we have within our LifeData platform. I mentioned the significant volume of emails. We also have phone numbers. We have various other data elements that we use to identify and associate these different data attributes to the consumer. We've spent a lot of time on social data. We have about 150 million social profiles that are maps to emails. And all of our data is observationally based. In other words, if it can be indexed and seen by a search engine, we also have access to it. So it's all observational, and this includes things such as likes, interests, activities, tweets, people responding to tweets, all of the different social data attributes that are available, not only on the large social media platforms, but also things like review platforms, so on and so forth. If we move now to slide 9, just a little bit more on the social data. As I mentioned, we have a significant volume of social data when it comes to the 3 big platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. We've assembled and mapped various attributes and are monitoring these types of data elements so that we can deliver value to enterprises that are looking for greater insights from actions and activities that are occurring on social networks. And so ultimately what may happen, aside from just getting a raw data element, when you start building analytics on top of this data, when you see a signal increase, let's say, for example, a person becomes more active on LinkedIn, that can be a very interesting indication. Likely they're looking for a job, for example. And so the patterns and signals that can be extracted from some of these unstructured data elements within the social media platforms can be very powerful in terms of understanding what's happening with the consumer, what are their interests, what are their likes, what are some behavioral activities that may impact various scenarios relative to their actions. If we go to slide 10, just real quickly, demographic, we have interest data, we have purchase behavioral data, so we have a fair amount of additional data elements. As I noted, I think I noted previously, within the 3.2 billion emails that we have about 500 different attributes that we're able to assign to the consumer that ultimately builds a profile of that consumer. And of course, obviously, when you look to predict actions, maybe you're looking to predict who would be interested in one particular offer versus the next, these types of data elements can be very powerful in terms of predicting consumer behavior, in terms of who will engage with those offers. You know, as I said previously, who's going to pay their bills on time, all these types of things. The next slide, slide 10. Slide 10 is an area we're spending a lot of time as well, in addition to social data, which is unique data around what we call LifeData event trigger, event trigger information. And so as a consumer goes through their life, there are numerous actions, activities, and events, if you will, that occur that can considerably change the behavioral pattern of the consumer. And so you graduate college, you start your job, you get your first job, you buy a car, get married, you buy a house, you have children, and maybe you get divorced. These are all things that occur during the life cycle of a consumer that can certainly changes the behavior. Obviously, once you have children, a person in a family that have kids is completely different than literally the day before they had kids. When patience grows, different types of products are desired, just behavior patterns change. And again, these are all powerful indicators and predictors of different marketing changes and so on and so forth. We're going to move into the data analytics side of our business. And so while we'll license and make these data attributes available to third-party applications, we also have built an analytics platform on top of our LifeData services. And as noted, all of these different data attributes that define who a person is in the real world can be very powerful in predicting behavior. And what we find is that when you model enterprise data, i.e. transactional data, log file data, maybe it's minutes used on a wireless carrier, all of any kind of enterprise data where you're looking at a business case that you can act upon to either increase revenues, reduce costs, i.e. maybe it's reducing churn. When you combine the enterprise data that the enterprise has relative to their consumers with the life data, the machine learning and the analytic results that come from the output of those analytics are far more accurate and far more powerful in terms of predicting behavior. And the example kind of goes as following. So you might think, hey, a person who is all of a sudden has a large volume of customer service complaints is likely to get, there's an increased likelihood that they're going to cancel their membership. or their subscription. Well, when you layer on the LifeData attributes, you get an even more powerful predictive signal. For a simple case where the mind takes over, a person with children is likely to be more patient than one with no kids, and so the one with children might have a lower likelihood to churn than the one that does not have kids. And so that's an example just that the mind can understand. When we apply machine learning, the power of taking those enterprise data elements and applying analytics on top of the combined set is very, very powerful. So if we go to slide 13, there's a visual picture of how this looks. We take our LifeData attributes, which includes everything as noted previously, and we combine that with our enterprise's customer data, or their enterprise data of whatever sorts, transactional data, historical donation levels, it could be any sort of data. And then you start analyzing the output of that data based upon the business case that's looking to be addressed. And it might be looking to reduce churn. It might be looking to optimize user engagement in terms of offers that are presented, so on and so forth. And the output of that combined set, when you apply machine learning, is very powerful in terms of predicting behavior. And there's some examples here, everything from, who's going to watch certain types of movies, who will pay their bills on time, who will change services, who will churn, these types of things. What's the best offer percent in front of them? And that's essentially what we're doing as a business here. In terms of a use case example, if we go to slide 14, and here's an example of leveraging our social data. And our social data has been something we put an immense amount of effort and time into because as we look at where the industry is going in terms of trends, there's lots of companies looking to extract the information and the power contained within social media. And obviously, social media platforms have been designed for people to interact, for people to put their profile online, and to expose various data elements and talk to the world in different ways and fashions. And so here's an example of a social commerce company that, think of an MLM or multi-level marketing, network-based marketing, that's looking to sell a particular service through social mechanisms. And the key thing here was, can we identify social attributes that lend towards improved performance? And in particular, we were comparing two segments within their database, with those who are viral, meaning they're selling a lot, and their network and their friends and their social connections are contributing revenue, and those who signed up but who are not selling. And so when we started analyzing the two different sets, we found that attributes relating to social characteristics, i.e., how many friends does a person have, how frequent do they like, are people posting responses to their messages, and so on and so forth, became a very, very strong indicator of the viral segment within the enterprise data. And so they sent us their data set, which included characteristics in characteristics associated with both segments, viral and non-viral. We layered on our LifeData, include social data as well as others, and we found some very interesting signals and patterns that correlated to that. And ultimately, the value proposition here is, now if you want to move the needle in terms of marketing, and you want to take your existing customer base and get them to improve, well, you can launch a nurturing or an outreach campaign to the 80% who are not performing very well, and you'll have some level of success. But if you focus that marketing on the 15 to 20% of the non-performers who look and who are modeled very much like the performers, i.e. they have similar characteristics as the viral category, your effectivity of marketing is far better than doing it blindly to the whole group. And so that's where our LifeData attributes and the modeling is used in this particular case. And there are other examples. Let's say it's a university that's looking to optimize their fundraising activity. They would give us a historical set of data, say the last 2 years of donation levels. We would analyze that, characterize it, use clustering technologies to create predefined segments, i.e. different levels of donation, 0 to 50, 50 to 200, 200 to 500, and so on and so forth. And then we'll append our LifeData on top of that and look at other signals or patterns that correlate to high levels of donation versus low levels of donation and different ones. And where that's used in a true case of ROI benefit is this small group who is very high donors, or who once the model is built, you comply to the entire alumni database, and now you'll have a predictive model of the entire alumni set of data. And then you can optimize your fundraising outreach in a manner such as having, let's say, a high-level university person call the folks directly who look very much like the high donors. And maybe there's another group that is modeled to be pretty strong donors. Maybe you have a wine tasting event and invite everybody down to the hall on campus. And then thirdly, maybe there's another group again who maybe is lower level donor, but there's a likelihood because they're modeled very much like the folks who behave that way historically, and you do a nurturing campaign. So there's ways that you can optimize marketing based upon the characteristics associated with LifeData after analyzing the historical activity of enterprise transactional data. That's what we're doing as a business, leveraging the significant volume of LifeData attributes to combine with enterprise data and apply big data analytics technologies for predictive modeling that can be used in numerous business cases. And with that, I'll pause and let you ask some questions.
Sure. So Chris, just so I can understand your business model, are you taking all this disparate information and making sense out of it for someone who might want to do a particular set of queries? Or do you just give them this raw information aggregate?
Two things. In some two types of businesses. There are those folks who have their own data scientists and do their own data analytics in-house, or that have applications that require data as an input. In those cases, we'll license our LifeData attributes to those folks. In other cases, they desire to be more data-driven in their marketing activities, but they do not have the data scientists and analytic resources in-house. In those cases, they can leverage our analytics platform to get the value out of that. And essentially, by simply providing us with certain sets of sample data that we can build the model on based upon historical transactional data or data that they have relative to certain actions, once we build the model combining our LifeData platform with the enterprise data, now that model can be applied to their entire customer base, their prospect list, and you can optimize whatever the business case is using the analytics that is resident in our platform.
Yeah, and that makes sense. You know, I just saw this talk by a guy from Bank of America, Bradford Spears, and he asked the audience, he goes, what's the number one indication that we're not going to get paid back on a loan? And we guessed a bunch of stuff like divorce or whatever. And he said, no, if the minute somebody pays a bail bondsman, that's when we can be sure we're never going to see another check. But they spent a lot of money and continue to invest in big data analytics, right? So they could come up with conclusions like that. So your company then sounds like you're providing that kind of capability to much smaller types of enterprises and that kind of insight. Is that a fair description?
Not entirely. I mean, we're working with some of the more larger, well-known brands that folks will be familiar with. Let's say, for example, a large consumer packaged good beverage company of the strongest, one of the top brands you would think of, or maybe a top mobile carrier, these types of things. And so as we progress in our business, however, while we're working with some of the larger folks in the industry to address particular business cases where predictive analytics and big data analysis is achieved and where we're looking to deliver a unique value set with our LifeData platform, we do believe that small to medium-sized businesses will want to extract value from that as well. And so as we continue to evolve our analytics platform, which is designed, frankly, for organizations who do not want to hire data scientists, in that regard, the benefit will be basically you'll be able to get to that benefit for smaller businesses, right, that don't have the resources to hire these types of data scientists and so forth.
So, Chris, I guess where is this going? I mean, do you move from your current model? Are you able to take like the fire hose from things like Facebook and Twitter and give like real-time analysis, or where do you think it's headed?
Well, we see there's a couple different trends. As mentioned, there's a lot of folks looking to leverage social data, and going back to your example. There are an indicator of, hey, I just paid a bail bondsman, or there are other indicators that can be equally as powerful in terms of decision making. And maybe it's, should I, how credit worthy is an individual or a business, let's say. And if you start analyzing social data, let's see let's say there's lots of bad reviews, and let's say the employees for that business are all looking for new jobs because there's lots of activity on LinkedIn. And then you start looking at, there's a decrease in likes, and they have a low likes. All these types of things are signal inputs that maybe that business is not going so well for that business. And so that's an example of how social data can be used in a real business decision, such as the example noted. So we're seeing lots of businesses looking to analyze social data as a way to understand their customers and to use that data for decision making in various business cases. And that's why we put a tremendous emphasis on capturing this social data, and being able to analyze tweet streams. And then combine, not just take that social data and look for signals. Where we're a little bit different is we take that social data and then we'll combine it with all sorts of offline data, demographic data, various financial related data that's all publicly available, so that you can actually make even greater sense with it, with some of the signals that you're seeing. And so that we see that there's going to be a lot more coming in terms of extracting value out of social data. We also see that companies are having a hard time finding data scientists. And so that's where our platform is designed that you don't have to have a data scientist that's using existing statistical modeling technologies out there like R and SPSS and these types of things. You can simply input your data and have a very simple and easy-to-use tool that gives you the model output.
Well, kind of a wrap-up here, Chris. I mean, how easy is it to kick the tires on this and see if it's right for my enterprise?
It's pretty easy. I mean, we feel like we're pretty early on in some of the big data evolution here, and while we're still building out our models, we're very open to working with large enterprises on a pilot basis. Because I think what's happening is folks are trying to get their head around all this big data. Marketing departments are going, hey, we got to jump in and understand this, and it all comes down to what's the ROI benefit, and can you deliver increased revenue, reduced cost, more efficiency, and we see that all the time, and so we're very willing to work with enterprises on a trial basis based upon the business case they're looking to address, and validate that the machine learning, the analytics can help optimize marketing, certainly when you combine the big data elements to the enterprise data. And we'll typically work with an enterprise on a 4-month pilot program, which at a fairly nominal expense, so it's not a big investment. You don't have to go buy all these big data technologies. You can get access to our analytics without having to make that big investment. And once you see that the ROI is there, you see that you can get greater insights on your customer base and then apply those insights to various actions, then we're very confident that those enterprises will sign on for longer-term programs to extract the value on an ongoing basis.
Well, terrific. Well, Chris, I want to thank you once again for coming on the show today.
I appreciate it, and look forward to future conversations as well.
You bet. Okay, folks, that's it for the Rich Report. Stay tuned for more news and information on the world of big data.